he is very dialed in on one of the toughest things that we're facing today as a country, and that is inflation. And he understands fully what cities and counties are facing across our country in terms of public safety. And I really do believe that he is the right man for the right time in Congress. And I hope that very soon that he is no longer the minority leader, but that he is the Speaker of the House. And so without further ado, I know that all of you are going to be very impressed. For those of you who have not met the congressman, you are going to be absolutely thoroughly impressed with his breadth and depth of knowledge on all fronts. And it's been an honor of me to be able to participate with him today. And I am a very proud supporter of Congressman Kevin McCarthy. Congressman.
Let's thank the mayor. It's not an easy town to get elected in as a Republican, but doing an amazing job. First of all, thank you all for showing up. There's a lot of good friends in here, a lot of new ones, and people that I want to make friendship with. I'm not elected to this area yet. The new lines have been drawn, go all the way up within Clovis, Fresno County, and first thing I want to do is come up here and listen to you. I want to hear the concerns. I want to be able to work together. And look, if you look at this district, it's probably the best district in the country. The only problem is we're surrounded by California. Some of you know my background. Some of you might not. Let me quickly tell you. I come from the southern end of the valley. I'm born and raised in Bakersfield. My father was a firefighter. My mother raised us. I come from an Irish and Italian family. We had the best fights in the neighborhood. I'm the youngest in my family, and we didn't have great wealth. So when I got out of high school, my family always instilled in me a work ethic, and I went to community college, which is great, right? I went to Bakersfield College. And I remember there's this one liquor store. You can figure out how I met this man. But he had a car dealer's license. And so I talked him in, and I said, if I pay you $100, would you take me to the LA car auctions? Right? This is where all the dealers bring their trade in, but you've got to be a dealer. So I would go there, and I would buy and sell and flip cars to pay my way through college. Now, I learned out later it was illegal, but I did not know that. And so what do you do when you're away at community college? You go visit your friends who are away at college, right, on the weekends. So this one weekend, I was going to go visit some friends at San Diego State. So it's a Friday night. I go to the grocery store to cash a check so I have some money for the weekend. And this is 1985. So the day before the lottery started in California. So when I cashed a check, I bought a lottery ticket at the same time, and I won the lottery. True, so, but it's not lotto, it's not millions of dollars. But the most you could win when it first started was $5,000. So put yourself in my place. It's 1985, you're 20 years old. You just won $5,000. This is before Biden and Obama, so we didn't have a lot of inflation back then. You just won $5,000. It's Friday night, and you end up 10 minutes from Tijuana. Okay? So I come back, I take my folks to dinner, give my brother and sister each $100, and I take the majority of the rest of the money. I want you to learn this about me. I'm willing to take a risk. I take the majority of the rest of the money, I put it into one stock. You know what? I did pretty well. I made 30% of my money in 6 weeks. So it comes as a break of a semester. I decided to take a time off from school. I go out and I try to buy a franchise, but no one's going to sell me one because I'm 20 years old. Another thing you'll learn about me is I never give up. So I go and I open my own business. It was a deli, okay? I even built a counter in my dad's garage. And there's 3 lessons I learned from everyone in here who's a small business owner. These are the lessons. I was the first to work, I was last to leave, and I was last to be paid. Yep. And it was very rewarding, okay? So at the end of 2 years, I now have enough money to pay my way through college, as long as I go to Cal State. And I want to finish my degree, and no one in my family had finished a 4-year degree at this time. So I sell my business, I'm going to school, I open up the local paper, and what does it say? It says, be a summer intern in Washington, D.C. with my local congressman. Now, I do not know this man, but I thought he'd be lucky to have me, okay? So I applied, and you know what he did? He turned me down. But you want to know the end of the story? I'm now elected to the congressional seat I couldn't get an internship for. Only in America could I do that. I got one question for all of you. Have you had enough of Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi? All right. We are going to have a good election. And I want to walk you through why we're going to have that election. There's people like you. You know, in the last election, everyone said we'd lose 15 seats in the House. You know what I love? They got the number right, the party wrong. It was the first time since 1994 not one incumbent lost, and we beat 15 Democrats. Yay! And you know who beat the 15 Democrats? Every single Democrat lost to a Republican woman or a Republican minority. Yay! And you know what else happened? Especially the Republican women in the room? We elected more Republican women to Congress than at any time in the history of Congress.
And they're all great women.
Yeah, they are. Okay.
Great job.
So if I look today, and you take a poll anywhere you want, we feel it no matter where we're in the valley or somewhere else. Inflation, thanks to the Democrats, is high. We've got gas price at $5. We've got avocados doubling. We've got everything that you look at. We've got crime rising. And you want to know why crime is rising? Because the Democrats put to defund the police. Thank God you got a mayor who you have. But you know the challenge of what we have today, though? How do you keep somebody on force? Would you join now, based upon what they're doing? And then we have Soros electing DAs. Thank God we don't have that here. But who wants to pick and choose what law they're going to uphold? We got a border that is open and insecure in the bases. And it's not just people coming here illegally, it's the fentanyl coming across. Do you know the #1 cause of death to anyone between the ages of 18 and 45? Is fentanyl. You know where fentanyl comes from? China. We've got a president who tries to break up an energy independence that makes America strong, but says no to American pipeline, but will say yes to Putin to have a pipeline. And what does Putin take with that pipeline? He takes the money, and then he puts his troops along the border because he saw weakness. We got a president, and I was talking to a group earlier before. I love to study history. And there's 2 times that I think in history we're repeating right now. And unfortunately, it's the lack of leadership in this White House that's causing it. It's the late 1930s. Because what Biden is doing, he is pushing Russia with China, with North Korea, and with Iran. He's creating an axis with a common denominator of what? To combat America. Then it's like 1979 again. Tell me this. In 1979, we had a president by the name of Jimmy Carter. When was the last time we had a president that Americans were held hostage in the Middle East? They were held in Iran, and now we have Americans being held in Afghanistan. When was the last time you had a president that looked weak from militarily how he ran it? Jimmy Carter couldn't land the helicopters to get the hostages out. And what Joe Biden has done to America by what he did in Afghanistan is going to cost us for decades. First, he cost 13 families to have new Gold Star families. By the way, he closed Bagram. In Bagram, we had a prison there that had 5,000 of the worst people in the world. And the minute he closed it, they broke out. And you know what? That's where the suicide bomber came from that went and killed those 13 heroes of American soldiers. When was the last time you had a president, when he had an energy crisis, look to OPEC to solve it instead of letting America become energy independent? When was the last time we had a president that had inflation like this? And he denies that it's there. When was the last time we had a president that had a family member like Billy Carter who took $400,000 from a foreign leader to create Billy Bear? And now we've got a president that has a son that thinks he's an artist. That is the challenge of where we live. But if you study American history, what changed? We united together, not just Republicans, but as Americans. We defeated it, and we changed the course of history. We're going to do the exact same thing again, and this time we're not going to let them get back in office. I know votes aren't given, they're earned. And I want to look at each and every one of you and tell you, I want to earn your support, and I want to earn your vote. And I'll never take it for granted. I got a friend here, Shannon Grove. She works in the state senate. She's going to earn your vote too, right here.
Yeah.
The thing I will tell you is, we are in a moment of time that we can change history. You know, if you look to Congress, it's like a 50-year election. By this I mean this isn't going to come together like this for another 50 years. And by this what I mean is there's a lot of measurements, right? If you take whatever party wins the White House, historically since World War II, they lose 27 seats in the off-year election. It's happened every time except twice since World War II, after 9/11 and after the impeachment of Clinton. If a president has an approval rating below 50, they usually lose seats. This guy's down to 43 and dropping. One thing about members of Congress, they won't know a lot about a subject, but they also know, they do know the number one subject, what's going to happen to them personally, politically. Do you realize as of yesterday, 30 Democrats have announced retirement? In 2010, when they lost 63 seats, only 17 Democrats retired. They know what's coming. Virginia and New Jersey. These are very Democrat states, but together, collectively, in off-year elections that they've always been for governor of the state house, has always told us ahead of time what will happen with Congress. Now, Biden won New Jersey by 16 points. He won Virginia by 10. Youngkin showed the way. They also flipped the House. In New Jersey, we came very close to winning that governorship. Many people we couldn't. They didn't really fund it. But do you know who we did beat? We beat the second most powerful Democrat in New Jersey. He was the president of the Senate. And the thing you have to realize is, 4 years prior, they spent $17 million trying to defeat him, and they couldn't. So they really didn't get a lot of people to run against him, but they got what? An American who believed in standing up. He was a truck driver, and he spent less than $200, and he beat him. That's the good news, right? You want to know what the bad news is? In this new Biden America, we just lost another truck driver. But what that tells you is, any Democrat sitting in a seat that Biden won by 16 or less is competitive. And when I walk around this room is what I love. This is a microcosm of America. There are different faces, different genders, different backgrounds. For the first time in history, the Hispanic population breaks even between Republicans and Democrats. If we want to be the majority party, this party has to have their arms wide open and welcome everybody into it. We live in the valley. We know the values of people, and we know people want to be the Republican. We want to bring them in. The last thing I will tell you is our recruiting has gone better than you ever could imagine. We have more people running at any given time. We have more competition. We've got the issues on our side. Every major issue that's a problem to America has been created by the Democrats. I believe in campaigns you should lay out to the public what you will do if you win the majority. We'll come out with a contract with America. It'll be called Commitment to America. Not only will we pass legislation to make us stronger, we're going to hold this administration accountable. The Attorney General should not be looking at parents who want to have a say in their kids' education and think they're terrorists. He should go look at terrorists for that. We need to know where the origin of COVID came from and hold China accountable. Yes. The other thing I will tell you too, we're going to get to the bottom of what has transpired, what Durham is going through and looking at. Whatever has happened there, look, we've got some wind in our back. But what's happening in the House is you've got redistricting. It only happens once every 10 years. This is our moment to capture seats that you normally couldn't, and they can lock it in for the next 10 years. Think about what the next century could be. We could change the course and make this country stronger. Now, I've got to earn your support. I've got to earn your vote. But if we are successful in November, if you're kind enough to send me back, I'm going to send you an invitation a few weeks later, because I want you there in January when Nancy Pelosi has to hand me that gavel. I can't thank you all enough. We're not a package deal, but Shannon will tell you, she was running a business, small business, working hard, and she got a phone call for me one day. She thought I was asking her for money. I asked her for a lot of money, but now she asked me for more money. So but I said, I don't want money from you today, but I want you to do something you might not have thought before. You're watching a state turn before your eyes. You can't sit back and do nothing. You have the right passion. You have the right ability. Have you ever thought about running? She thought about it for 10 minutes. She says, I'm in. You know what? I love watching her in Sacramento. She might be in the minority, but she never lets them roll over her. And we need more voices like that up here as well. Let me stop there. The one thing I will tell you is Devin and I have been friends long before we ever ran for office. I still talk to him a lot. I hope he's very successful in what he does, because we need it as conservatives to have a platform for a voice. Yes. And he's the best person. I was just with President Trump the other day, and Devin called, and he's working hard, and he's going to make a difference for all of us. I wanted him to stay because he's my best friend and he's a hard fighter. But we're not going to forget him, and he's going to keep fighting for all of us. So I thank him for his service in his time. Let's take questions, comments, wisdom. If you have, I'll take a couple questions. Yes, sir.
Have you seen the film Capital Punishment that came out in November, December of last year? And would you comment on it?
I have not seen that film, but I'd love to.
Are you aware of it?
I'm not aware of it, but if I could see it, I'd love to.
Okay. I'd like to tell everybody, so grab a copy and watch it. It's very, very enlightening. It's on what really happened on January 6th.
Okay. What else you got for me? Yes, ma'am.
How close are we to getting the border closed?
You know what is so bad? So last March, I took a group of members down to the border because the president was saying, I had this meeting in the White House, in the Oval Office with him, and I brought up about the border not being secure. He said, oh, no, I inherited a problem. I'm solving it. No, he's open and wide open. If you spend time, I cannot thank the border agents enough for the work they're doing and how far they're being pushed. But the border is now a crisis, not because we passed new legislation. It's the executive orders of the president. And when I was down there, we were touring it, and what they were telling me is they've never seen anything like it, where they would bring families in one place and they'd bring all these men running, and the amount of fentanyl that's coming across. There's enough fentanyl now in America to kill us all 7 times over. And the other challenge they told me is they're now catching people on the terrorist watch list. Shocking, right? So I go down, I hold this press conference, and I bring that out. You would think the people on the other side of the aisle will say, oh my God, we've got to stop that. We've got to protect America, right? These are terrorists. They're on the watch list. Must be the worst people in the world. They said I was a liar. And then I went out and proved it. So now they don't want to give us the number. Just at that moment in time, they had caught 2 people getting into California that were on the terrorist watch list from Yemen. Not from Central America, from Yemen. 160 different countries of people coming across. That is a real challenge for us. And you look, and then with the problem, we have to hold this government accountable. Not only do they come across the border, then in the middle of the night, they fly them to other parts of the country while we're sitting in the middle of COVID as well. Yes. Who else got anything for me? Yes, ma'am.
How's your relationship with McConnell and the way that he takes the money and spends it incorrectly?
Look, the Senate is another body, but I work with the leader on the other side. We're stronger when we work together. Sometimes we have difference of opinion. Look, the uniqueness of our founders, they created the House and the Senate difference. And this is how I look at it. If you ever go to the Capitol and you go to the Senate, it's like going to the country club, right? You're quiet, everybody's all wealthy like that. If you come to the House, it's like eating at a truck stop, okay? We're a microcosm of society, and we're like some harder fighters. So I think that's how people wanted to design it and fight it, so we're in a good place. Yes, sir?
I know you were one of the first to talk about this, but since it's an issue on both sides of the aisle, how realistic is it to ban stock trades for members of Congress that have them managed by people as opposed to themselves? Yeah.
Great question. Right now, it's illegal for insider trading and others. What's interesting to me, I raised this issue a while back. Nancy Pelosi has all the power as Speaker. They could determine what comes to the floor. They could determine whether a bill gets out of committee. She doesn't just buy stock. She buys options. She made $5 million in 1 month. Anybody else making that? And you know what the options were on? It was all on tech stock. And you know what we were doing at that time? Moving in tech bills. It's amazing to me, right? I think if we're going to trust our government, we're going to trust our people, we got to hold people to a higher standard. And from a reporting period and others, this is something that we have to look at as we move forward. Maybe it's where people should invest in mutual funds so they don't have a say in the process. But it's something that fundamentally that I brought up early on in the process. I don't know if Pelosi's going to change it, but we're in the majority who will. Yes, sir.
Congressman, I'm a county supervisor in San Joaquin, and
Thank you for
the
your
biggest
service.
issue we have is homelessness.
Yes.
It's the #1 issue. And coming from Washington, that housing first approach is failing. We know the people out there, it's mostly drugs, they've got mental health issues. Is there an option or opportunity to maybe change the direction, start bringing some funding for emergency shelters and the treatment and services that the people that are out there are struggling with?
There's a couple different things. And California has it worse because of Prop 47, same thing with crime. The two major reasons for homelessness is going to come from drug addiction, that's what meth does, makes it, and mental illness. The other challenge that we have is we have a legal challenge when it comes to the Boise case. Here's a mayor that works day and night trying to make your city safer in the process, but also take care of homelessness. He does not have the power to go out if somebody's on the street and pick them up and put them somewhere. They first have to determine they have to have a bed for them, the places. You know, in the last little bit, before you're mayor, the only major city that decreased homelessness was San Diego under a Republican mayor. Because you know what he did? He put 3 big tents out and he brought people in, he'd pick them up, put them in the tent, he'd do a wraparound for health care, for education, for charter schools and others. And it was a community that worked. Yeah, and it's part of what your mayor is doing as well. We need to support it, but we also need to be able to change some of these rules to be able to pick it up. One of the other challenges, fine, with Prop 47 is why rise in crime, but individuals are not getting arrested for this petty theft and others. And unfortunately, at times, some of the treatment for these individuals would happen in the jails, and now you're not able to treat an individual. They can reject it. We've got to find a better way to deal with it than what's currently there. If you just read the recent poll in California, it's one of the biggest issues in California, one of the biggest challenges that we have. Hey, what about San Francisco? Are you sick of wokeism?
Yeah.
But think for one moment. This is a school district that if you want to study history, the way you take a country down is you tell them their foundation of what they have created is wrong. This is a school district that went out to try to change the names of all the schools that were named after our founders, the Abraham Lincolns, the George Washington, the Thomas Jeffersons. And San Francisco is not a Republican area, but thank God they woke up and recalled 3 of them. Yes. This is really a good sign. All right, last question. Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mary, is that you?
Hi, Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
I like everything you're saying about what you're going to do, but every time the Republicans take over,
Yes.
nothing's being done. The only time was when Trump came into office and he became our president. Now, I've been active in politics. I was one of the 2 that started the campaign here for Trump, and then helped Mr. Cookingham and others, but it seems like I'm working with the grassroots now, and we have a lot of Hispanics from Democrats are coming in, independents are coming in, and they do want to come and follow us, but they say nothing changes back in D.C. So when you take over, is things are going to change, or is it going to be the same thing with people saying, oh, we're going to do all this for you, but when we're in office, nothing happens?
Great
That's
question.
why I love Trump.
And we have such high expectations, and we're really excited.
Okay, the one thing I'm going to tell you, do not expect me to do it alone. And I'm going to tell you this. When I invite you back to watch the Gavel, I'm going to take you into my conference room. And the reason why I'm going to take you to my conference room, I want you to look at what I have on the wall. I have this painting of Washington crossing the Delaware. You know that famous painting, right? Do you know when we crossed Delaware? Christmas 1776, right? The person who painted that painting was not there that night. He was actually an immigrant who lived in America from Germany, Emanuel Lenz, and he went back to Germany and he painted in 1850, 1851. You want to know why he painted that painting? Because he knew America was more than a country, America was an idea, and he wanted Germany to have a revolution based upon the values and the freedoms of America. And his talent was art, so he said, I'm going to paint this painting of the story that I was told to inspire the Germans to have a revolution. Now, when you look at that painting, it has Washington in a ceremonial uniform standing up in the middle of winter in a rowboat with his hand on his chest. You would look at Washington and you'd say, oh my God, I'd follow that man. He looks so stoic. I'd go into battle with him. I bet he's never lost. But you know what history told us? At that moment in time, Washington had never won. He'd only lost. History tells us that Washington didn't cross in a rowboat. He crossed in a Durham boat. But to this artist, he put 13 people in a rowboat. Why would he pick the number 13? 13 columns. But he only shows you 12 faces. When you go home and you look at this picture, don't look at Washington. What I want you to look at is who's in the boat. The second person, he has a beret on, he's Scottish. The person directly across from him rowing in the exact same cadence is African American. You come down the boat right in the middle, the person who looks like they're rowing the strongest in the red is a woman. And in the very back is a Native American. Now I cannot tell you from a historical fact if those are the people who would be in the boat, but to this young immigrant who had lived in America, that's who he believed would be in the boat that day. Now the second to last person, they could have been from Fresno, they were a farmer. Look at you, Larry. And this farmer, he has a hand across his face. It's the hand of the 13th person nobody sees. You see, what Emmanuel is saying is, here we are, not a country, but an idea. Having lost every battle before, but willing to risk it on our holiest night of Christmas for the idea of freedom, not just for me, but for the next generation. Here's a hand, would you get in and join us? My answer to you is yes. I'll do everything in my power to keep whatever promises we make. As Donald Trump likes to say, he kept more promises than he made. But what I'm asking all of you is to get in that boat with us. Our challenges are big, just as crossing that Delaware was. We've got wind in our face, but we also have something else. We know what's made this country great, and the desire to fight for it, and the desire to make the next century ours. So join with us. Let's cross that river, but more importantly, let's turn the tide of what it is today. Thank you, and God bless.